From getting into an elaborate drama regarding his refusal to get vaxxed for COVID in 2021, to the endless list of accusations that this fighter tried really hard to defend himself against, here are Michael Chandler's most controversial moments. Starting off is something many people in sports chose to do around the time of the COVID pandemic, and it looks like Chandler also became negatively known for holding the anti-vaxxer stance. It honestly didn't seem like Chandler meant to stir up that much trouble in 2021. When he said during an Instagram live chat that he wasn't going to get a COVID-19 shot before his fight with Justin Gaethje, Chandler said this is a response to New York's new COVID-19 vaccination laws, which required people to show proof of vaccination before entering restaurants, gyms, and indoor entertainment venues. The thing is, he said in his first comments that he didn't know if his fight with Gaethje would be in danger because of the rules in New York. But boy, it wasn't until later that he realized his words had taken on a life of their own. On Wednesday's episode of the MMA Hour, Chandler talked about how he didn't even intend on talking so much about the vaccine in the first place. The way he saw it was that he was just with a couple of thousand people or something in a private Instagram live session. And 5 minutes after he hit end live, one of the MMA media outlets said that Chandler isn't going to get vaccinated. He also clarified after this news started to make headlines that he didn't have the vaccine, and he honestly still wasn't sure if he was ever going to get it. He just thought that the country he lives in gives him enough liberty to have complete control over their bodies. In the end, he said people who call him an anti-vaxxer must have thought he was a jerk, but all he did was answer a question. It's interesting, though, to see that Gaethje kinda had something different to say. Around that time, he went on UFC Unfiltered and said that he thinks Chandler was just trying to get attention by sharing a private health issue in a public place. I mean, this wouldn't be the first time a guy like him has blown things out of proportion for clout, so there's definitely that. Then comes one of the most controversial fights that Chandler has ever fought, and Michael has gone out of his way to prove that he hadn't cheated. Not gonna lie, his attempts seemed too desperate at some point. Basically, Chandler was being accused of cheating in his fights with Dustin Poirier. At UFC 281, he kept up his streak of getting into fights inside the octagon. The former Bellator champion had been in memorable fights with Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. That was until he got into a fight with Poirier. As most people expected, the fight was fast-paced and entertaining. Iron seemed to stick to his decision to choose fan-favorite matchups over easier ways to win, which he did again after the Diamond dropped him in round 2. In the end, though, Chandler's attempt to use his wrestling skills against Dustin Poirier was what did him in. Poirier took him down, turned him around, and choked him from behind for a late submission win. Even though it wasn't surprising that they won Fight of the Night, fans, fighters, and experts talked about more than just how exciting the fight was, though. Chandler did things during the fights that many people called cheating, and Poirier himself called dirty. Some people thought that some of the ground shots Chandler threw were to the back of Poirier's head, and the number 5 contender was also criticized for what looked like a fishhook and a bloody move from the top position. It was then when Chandler took it upon himself to prove his innocence. He talked about each incident on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast.
There's a piece of luck in there as well. I mean, there's a piece of luck and chance where, I mean, if one of those punches lands a little bit higher, a little bit lower, a little bit harder, a little bit different angle. I mean, I remember in the fight, I was like, I'm about to finish this dude.
Starting with the one where he seemed to blow blood onto Poirier's face from his nose. Firstly, Chandler made it clear that the blood thing is neither dirty nor illegal. Then he said that Poirier had him in a triangle. Chandler's head was on his face, and his nose was obviously gushing blood. So at that point, all the guy really did was just breathe and stay alive. And if, in that princess, blood got onto his face, then it really wasn't his fault. Next, Chandler tried to explain why it wasn't true that he hit Poirier in the back of the head with a ground and pound. He admitted that 1 or 2 of the blows may have gone outside the legal area, but he said that was because his rival turned his head. The 3-time Bellator champion said that if an opponent turns their head on purpose to get a foul, they can take 1 or 2 shots. Then this guy also said that there were times that even Poirier did some questionable thing, but he didn't blame him for any of that. Chandler then started explaining how fast-paced and dangerous in-life fights can get. According to him, it's not the same when you're actually inside the confines of MMA and you're fighting for your life. And in that process, you're reaching for things and grabbing for things. A lot of it is muscle memory. Can't say that I disagree with him on that, honestly. Sometimes we do forget people can very much get life-threatening injuries during fights, and these fighters have to do anything and everything to protect themselves. Chandler talked about how Poirier bit his finger, but he didn't think that cheating because his finger shouldn't have been in Poirier's mouth in the first place. Honestly, regardless of these small moves during the fight, the overall consensus was that Chandler did cheat, especially when he used an illegal fishhook move. And the fact that this guy, to this day, thinks he was right seems problematic to a lot of people. Speaking of recent times, it seems like Chandler still ends up getting himself into controversial situations, and this time it's with Conor McGregor. McGregor and Michael Chandler seemed to get along for a while, and their friendly competition seemed like a sign of good sportsmanship. But if what UFC President Dana White has said is any indication, there may be more to the story.
It'll be interesting to see with Chandler and Conor. I think that there's a level of respect between those two. But, when you get inside and you see each other every day and you're crossing paths, but things happen. I don't know how it's going to play out, and that's what makes the season fun. I don't know how it's going to go.
In the next season of The Ultimate Fighter, former UFC lightweight and featherweight champion Conor McGregor will face lightweight contender and current number 5 ranking Michael Chandler. After the series premieres on ESPN on Tuesday, May 30th, the two opposing coaches will likely have a public showdown, but the date and time have not been confirmed. In the UFC 285 post-fight press conference, though, Dana White said that there were problems between the two during the filming of TUF. White said that the two got so angry with each other during filming that they had to be taken away physically. It looks like fans right now are on the edge of their seats because we recently found out that someone may have been hit during the incident. From what I've heard, Conor McGregor jumped into the cage as a competitor, was knocked out, and that's how the chaos broke out. When asked what he thinks of Michael Chandler in a recent interview, Conor McGregor's coach said, "He's like a bigger Chad Mendes to me." And then when he was asked more about Michael and Conor's relationship, the coach agrees that they're friends and refuses to say anything that would be controversial or go against what Dana White says. The coach did point out, though, that Conor might have gotten under Michael's skin a little bit. So I don't know who really is the one to blame here. All I know is Chandler isn't a pure soul either. And that's all for Michael Chandler's most controversial moments.